Welcome back, or hi for the first time. This is the second video in a series of videos where I redraw some illustrations I did years ago of my interpretation of the Nine Muses. Last time I drew the Muse of Comedy. This time I'm drawing the Muse of Songs of the Gods. By the way, I don't know where younger me got the list for what the Nine Muses are, the categories. I tried looking it up, but I couldn't find anything that completely matched what I had. But whatever, it's not really that important, but I thought I might as well point it out. Anyway, let's talk about the drawing. For the Muse of Songs of the Gods, which is such a mouthful, so let's just call them the Muse of Hymns instead. I actually didn't change that much compared to the Muse of Comedy. The pose is almost exactly the same, except I decided to change the face from a side view to a kind of a three-quarter view. The reason being, I gave the character a hairstyle where one eye is covered by blocky half bangs, and that really isn't visible in a complete side view. So by turning the head slightly, the hairstyle becomes more readable while still keeping the head angle somewhat similar to the original. Also, the body and scroll in both versions are in a more three-quarter view angle, so it actually makes more sense, perspective-wise and anatomy-wise, to have the head in a three-quarter view too, if they're looking at the scroll. So yeah. I think the body and hands turned out better in the last drawing, Muse of Comedy, but this one isn't bad by any means. I just think the hand is a bit boring, a little stiff and lifeless, kind of looks like a mannequin or a doll. I also feel like there's something off about the torso. I thought so even when I was drawing it, so I was trying to figure out how to fix it. But now I think it might just be because he's wearing a long shirt that goes past the torso, so it's kind of elongating it. Maybe I should have changed the shirt a bit. Really, it should have been blowing in the wind like the tie, and that would have also broken up any monotony of just this long straight shirt. Even though I'm being critical, I do genuinely like how the drawing turned out, and I think I did a better job with the head/face in this one compared to the Muse of Comedy. In the last redraw, I wasn't completely satisfied with how the face turned out, and figuring out a head/face look, style, whatever that I like is something I'm working on. And I really like how this one looks. I think it's cute, and it feels like an updated version of the style I used in the original, which is what I was going for. I realized that I drew the character a bit bigger than what I wanted. If you compare him to the original drawing or the Muse of Comedy that I just drew, he takes up a lot more space on the paper. I need to make sure for the next one that I keep it closer to the scale the characters are in the original drawings. Other than that, I still like how the character looks. I would just have liked him to be a bit smaller scale. You know what? The new version's placement/composition is a lot better than the original. The original feels like it's too pushed into the bottom left corner, when the intention was for it to be more centered. Moving on to the coloring. Last time I didn't want to use masking tape even though I had it because I thought it would be fine because I was only going to be coloring in a figure and not the background. I was right, it didn't really buckle that much, but it was still buckled enough to where it was kind of annoying me. So for the Muse of Hymns, I decided to use the masking tape. Now, there was another reason why I didn't want to use the masking tape, and that was, it's old. It doesn't come off the roll cleanly, it always ends up ripping, no matter how careful I am. You can even see in the video that it's all ripped. It kept the paper somewhat flat, but the tape did start lifting in certain places, and so I still got some buckle. I think I just need to buy some new tape before I do the next one. The coloring is fine, pretty similar to the Muse of Comedy. I tried to make it a little more saturated, but there's not as many colors in this one as the last one. I don't like the blue I picked for the new one. I liked the blue in the old one, which was more of a lighter navy blue, while this one is closer to turquoise, but not turquoise. The jeans in the original look like jeans, while the new one just looks like they're blue. I should test out the colors on a piece of paper before using them, because you can't see them that clearly in the palette, even when you're mixing. By the way, I forgot to mention this in the last video. In my original illustrations of the Nine Muses, I decided not to color in the skin. Don't know why, just didn't. The only coloring the skin has is a bit of shading, but that's only in some of the illustrations. I decided to keep this because it's a pretty big part of the illustration. But you know, I just thought I'd mention it, you know, because it's a random thing, you know, just in case somebody wonders. Now let's move on to the line art. I really like how the line art turned out. I think it's way better than last time with the Muse of Comedy. I used a ballpoint pen again, but I went over the lines way more to make them more pronounced and darker. The original illustrations had an extra thick outline for the silhouette of the figure. And in the Muse of Comedy redraw, I decided not to do it. But this time I thought, you know what? Let's just try it. For this outline, I used a fine liner because it's darker than the black ballpoint pen that I'm using for the rest of the illustration. The original drawing had a super thick outline, but I decided to tone it down just a bit. I am so glad I decided to do this. I wasn't satisfied with how the Muse of Comedy's line art turned out. I felt like it looked unfinished, but the Muse of Hymns feels complete. I also feel like the darker fine liner is helping support the ballpoint pen lines. It's like you don't need the lines to be dark. Just having some of them be gives off the impression that they all are. I don't know if I'm explaining that clearly, but whatever, I like it. I'd say this illustration turned out pretty good. The only thing I'd do differently is the blue I chose and the shirt. When I was looking back at the original, it was giving kind of a 90s angel choir boy. That wasn't the original intention. I mean, I wasn't thinking about that when I was originally drawing it. I just kind of drew what came to mind for religious song. There wasn't really any planning. I mean, there wasn't really any planning for the new one either, to be fair, but yeah. But anyway, I liked the 90s angel choir boy look, so I wanted to keep it for the redraw. But the shirt doesn't feel like it's the right type of shirt. I don't know why I didn't just keep it closer to the original. It should have been bigger, looser, more flowy, you know? If I ever redraw these illustrations again, I'm gonna make sure the outfit is bigger and baggier. Now that I'm looking at the before and after next to each other, the after does still look a little bit more washed out than the before. The line art is obviously like not as dark, and the color is also, I don't know if it's just the watercolor I had back then was just higher quality or brighter or whatever, but maybe let's see if I can improve on that as we move on. That's something to keep note over. In conclusion, I think the Muse of Hymns was an improvement from the Muse of Comedy, for the most part, and I hope that this pattern continues as I redraw the rest of the Muses. Next up will either be Muse of Romance or Muse of Dance. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.